This detective is walking toward a police car in Strongsville, Ohio. He has been building toward this moment for 3 months. Inside that car is an 18-year-old girl. She is about to find out why he is here. November 7th, 2022, 3 months after the crash. Mackenzie Shirilla is in the back seat. Through the window, Strongsville passes by. Ordinary Tuesday. Nothing out there knows what just happened. She is terrified. This ride lasts only a few minutes. What follows, it will last years. She turned 18 during her hospital stay after the crash. That is why this is an adult arrest. Not a juvenile proceeding, not a sealed file. An adult booking. What comes next, all of it, is on the record. 3 months from now, she will be sitting inside a courtroom. What happens in that courtroom will divide people for a long time. But all of that is ahead. Right now, the cruiser is moving through a suburb of Cleveland, and Mackenzie Shirilla has no idea where this ride ends. Strongsville, Ohio is the kind of suburb where nothing much happens. Clean streets, good schools, Friday football. Mackenzie grew up here. She was a cheerleader at Strongsville High School. A teenager whose social media looked like every other teenager's: friends, events, a boyfriend. The kind of life that fills a normal year without anyone noticing it passing. Nothing about her life from the outside looked like the beginning of a murder case. Dominic Russo came into her life before his name became part of a court record. He was 20 when the crash happened, 3 years older than her. By the spring of 2022, he had moved into the Shirilla family home. The relationship would later become the center of competing testimonies. Witnesses for the prosecution described something volatile underneath. Arguments, tensions that people around them noticed but rarely named. Witnesses for the defense described something different. A young woman who loved him. Normal complications, nothing dangerous. Both of those accounts would eventually sit in front of the same judge. She would have to decide which one to believe. As the cruiser moves through Strongsville, Mackenzie has no way of knowing that a courtroom will one day hold both versions of her relationship side by side, and that millions of people will form their own opinion about which one is true. Davion Flanagan was 19, the friend who came along. His family would later describe him as someone who needed to be remembered as a person, not a case reference. His sister Davion, his father Scott. In the summer of 2022, Davion was someone's son, someone's brother, someone who got into a car. Mackenzie Shirilla was about to start her senior year of high school when the crash happened. She had plans, she had a boyfriend, she had a life in a suburb where nothing much happened. On July 31st, 2022, everything changed. The most important hours in this case happened before sunrise, July 30th into July 31st, the night before. Investigators would later piece together the timeline from phone records, from witness accounts, from the digital trail that everyone leaves without thinking about it. What is documented is this. In the early hours of July 31st, Mackenzie Shirilla, Dominic Russo, and Davion Flanagan were together in a Toyota Camry. It was before 5:30 in the morning. Strongsville was quiet. What led to them being in that car at that hour, on that street, would become one of the core questions of the case. The prosecution had an answer. The defense disputed it. The judge would ultimately side with the prosecution. A Toyota Camry, Alameda Drive, a brick building that had been sitting in that spot for decades. Dominic was in the passenger seat. Davion was in the back. A surveillance camera across the street captured what happened. The car crossed into the building at speed. The Camry split apart. Debris spread 70 feet. Officers responding to a 911 call found 3 people inside the wreckage. None conscious, none breathing. One officer, still on Bodycam, looked into the vehicle and said, "Rest in peace, buddy. This is gonna just be a nightmare of a day for this whole department." Dominic and Davion were pronounced dead at the scene. Mackenzie was trapped under the dashboard. The jaws of life got her out. A helicopter took her to the hospital. 200 people stood at a vigil for Dominic and Davion in August. Mackenzie was still in the hospital bed. For Dominic's father, Frank, and Davion's father, Scott, August 2022 was about one thing: getting through it. Funerals. A community that showed up. Neighbors and friends standing in the summer heat trying to say something useful, finding that nothing useful exists to say. Two families trying to understand how two young men got into a car and did not come back. The investigation was still open, the cause still undetermined. Nobody had said the word murder yet. For the first weeks, investigators treated it as an accident. Then they opened the black box. The Toyota Camry had an event data recorder. It logs everything in the final seconds before impact. Investigators pulled it. They ran the data. The speed at impact, approximately 100 miles per hour. Duration of full acceleration before impact, 5 full seconds. Brake application, none. Not partial, not a tap, none. And then there was the road, Alameda Drive curves. To hold a straight line on a curved road, you do not simply release the wheel. You steer against the curve. The car traveled straight for 5 seconds, directly into a stationary wall. She was steering. She was not braking. The case stopped being about an accident. The black box was the beginning, not the end. What followed was 3 months of work. Warrants, records, witness interviews that go nowhere, then suddenly go somewhere. Each piece of evidence answered a question and opened another. The black box said she was accelerating. The question became, was it intentional? Then her phone. Cell phone location data placed Mackenzie Shirilla on Alameda Drive, that street, that block, that building, in the days before July 31st. She had been there before the crash. The question became, why? Then the hospital room. A detective went to see her while she was still recovering. He brought a recorder. He sat in the room. He was hoping she would say something without realizing anyone was listening. She did say something, just not to him, per lead prosecutor Tim Troop, speaking on the record on A&E's killer cases. While the detective was in the room, Mackenzie and her mother began speaking in what Troop described as a distorted form of English, something like Pig Latin. The prosecution decoded it. What they believed they heard was a conversation about what medical explanation to give, a seizure, a blackout, constructed while the recorder was running, and the detective sat 3 feet away. That recording was played at trial. Netflix did not include it. The question became, what did it mean? Detective Jisoo spent 3 months on that. Each answer pointed the same direction. On November 7, 2022, he drove to the Shirilla residence. As the cruiser carries Mackenzie through these streets, she doesn't know that a courtroom has already been set aside for what comes next. She doesn't know the judge's name yet. She doesn't know what the judge will say or how she will say it, or that millions of people will be arguing about all of it 3 years from now. Her parents get there fast. Steve Shirilla walks in tight-shouldered, voice already rising. He wants his daughter. He wants to know what she is charged with. He wants someone to explain what is happening. Nobody in that lobby can give him what he actually wants. He has been doing this since July, every day, standing in front of cameras and reporters defending her. He still believes it. And he is not wrong to be here. She is 18, she is inside on a murder charge, and he is her father. What he cannot change is that she is 18. Under the law, that is the boundary. Nothing he says in this lobby undoes that. He will still be defending her when Netflix calls 3 years from now. He will say something on camera about marijuana that will cost him his teaching job. But on this November night, none of that has happened yet. Right now, he is just a father in a police station, on the wrong side of a closed door. She asked him to be careful with her bracelet. The Cuyahoga County Jail is about 20 miles from Strongsville. Outside the window, Cleveland's suburbs pass in the dark, same road she has driven 100 times. They look different from the back of a police vehicle. She will sit in a courtroom inside this same county, in front of a judge named Nancy Margaret Russo. No relation to Dominic Russo. That judge will hear everything, every witness, every record, every frame of footage. What she decides and the exact words she uses will be quoted for years. Right now, none of that has happened. The vehicle moves through the dark. Mackenzie watches it go. Two people can watch the same evidence and reach completely different conclusions. Some people look at the black box and see a driver who held the accelerator for 5 full seconds while a road curved beneath her. They look at the phone records and see a location she had no reason to visit. They look at the hospital recording and see someone who understood exactly what had happened. Other people look at an 18-year-old girl in a hospital bed who says she remembers nothing. They look at a documented cardiac condition that can cause sudden loss of consciousness. They look at a teenager who had moved her boyfriend into her family home and ask how this is possible. The judge heard both. She chose the prosecution. But when a Netflix documentary put this case back in front of millions of people who had not sat through 3 weeks of trial, the argument started over. The families of Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan did not ask for it to reopen. They had already sat through every day of the trial. They had already heard the verdict. They had already gone home and started figuring out what life looks like after that. Then a streaming service put it on every television in the country. The Bodycam captures the arrest, the ride, the parents in the lobby, the bracelet. It does not capture the courtroom where Christine Russo stood up and told a judge who her brother was. It does not show Davion Flanagan's father in the gallery. It does not show 12 verdicts read aloud. It does not show sentencing or the appeals or the documentary. Everyone in this footage is living in November 2022. They do not know what August 2023 brings. They do not know the words the judge will use. They do not know that millions of people will be watching from their living rooms years later with their own verdict already formed. That is what makes this footage strange. We are watching the present tense of a story we already know the ending of. The trial was August 2023. One judge. No jury. Judge Nancy Margaret Russo heard everything and reached a verdict. 12 counts. Guilty. Her words, literal hell on wheels. Her finding, she had a mission and she executed it with precision. The mission was death. 2 concurrent sentences of 15 years to life. At sentencing, Mackenzie stood, "I love Dom and Dave. We were all friends. I am so sorry." She still says she does not remember the crash. Still says a cardiac condition may have caused it. The first appeal was denied. The second was denied. In March of 2026, an appeals court upheld the denial because her attorneys filed 1 day after the jurisdictional deadline. 1 day. The Ohio Supreme Court is deciding right now whether that single day should close the door on a hearing. Dominic Russo's father Frank was in that courtroom. His sister Christine testified. She told the court who her brother was before July 31st. Davion Flanagan's father Scott and his sister Davion appeared in the Netflix documentary for one reason. They wanted Davion to exist in the public memory as a person, not as the friend in the back seat, not as a name in a verdict. A person, with a family, who is still here. 200 people stood at that vigil in August of 2022. The driver was still in the hospital. On November 7th, 2022, a detective walked across a parking lot. He opened a car door. An 18-year-old girl asked him to be careful with her bracelet. He told her she was under arrest for aggravated murder, ×2. A cruiser moved through ordinary streets on an ordinary Tuesday night. And for the families of Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan, the waiting that had started on a July morning entered a new phase. A courtroom, then a verdict, then 15 years to life, then a documentary, then strangers on the internet reopening an argument a judge already settled. They are still inside it. Every family that lost someone always is. Crime Deepcut stays on this case. When the Ohio Supreme Court rules, we will be here. Subscribe.
Mackenzie, you put your shoes on and then bring a blanket out for me. Just gonna fix this wall for a second. Okay, turn and face the wall. Just put your hands up against it. I'm going to put this belt on first.
For property going down with her.
Yeah. I don't know if they'll take it.
Can my mom just go from here?
Do you know if Mama's still in the lobby?
No.
Okay. She left. If county doesn't take the property, just bring it back. I already had to fill out a form so her mom can come pick it up.
That just needs to stay safe. That's like where a lot of that stuff for Dom, so it just needs to stay safe.
It will, regardless of what ends up happening. You want it chained up? This is gonna be pretty loose.
That's fine.
Okay.
What does the chain do?
The chain's the same as the belt, but it's just gonna be a little bit tighter, but I don't know how much this is gonna sit. Oh, it's like your fault.
Sorry, Shane.
Alright.
I got this. I have the charge report that you have. I'm bringing down with her. Fact sheet.
Only other thing, the other night, we sent them down with the ITN number for the fingerprints, just because they said they might ask for it when you get down there. Alright, so it's the other thing.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
You just follow him. The back seat right here.